Time to warm up the crowd.
You ever have a friend who does like one thing and makes it their entire personality for a while? Maybe it's with a TV show, TallerVision reference Pog, or a meme that could never get old. That's the zombie type with Zombie World. Hi, I'm a white boy online with opinions on cards, some of them not very popular. Now let me tell you about why the card Zombie World and the Zombie Horde structure deck have just about ruined the zombie typing. I say the structure deck in particular because Necroworld Banshee is a big culprit in a lot of this, and she gets you to the Zombie World. They're a complete set. One true pair. Anytime you see a zombie deck in the meta, Zombie World has a chance to show up. Even if it's not a mainstay, you're a fool not to prepare for it. It makes Rivalry really good, and people like Rivalry, but playing this game for any amount of time longer than a Marvel movie can let you figure that out. It's a quintessential interaction, one of the most Yu-Gi-Oh things that can happen. That's Zombie World's identity in general, just very Yu-Gi-Oh, especially considering how it's been around since 2008. I'm not mad that people have generics to support their types and broader playstyle. I'm a notorious hater, but not that bad. But save barrier statues, in most cases, these generic type support cards aren't extremely effective floodgates. I'm looking at you, Secret Village. Secret Village, though, at least, wasn't given a card that lets you get it from the deck for free, in-engine, years after its release. Once that happens, you can legally rip off my face and feed it to Baylor Drock.
No.
Anyway, speaking of Secret Village, you don't see every single spellcaster deck crumbling to bits these days without their home brand Imperial Order, because it wasn't treated as the be-all end-all of what spellcasters have to offer. Saying spellcaster doesn't exactly evoke a super specific playstyle, except they do tend to fusion summon more than most, but I'd rather see this than a type revolving around this stinker. If Zombie World had done the same, oh, what might have been. The zombie typing is one that plays into its gimmick well, better than most types. Half of its members rotate around putting zombies from the deck in the graveyard, and Necroworld Banshee will always be one of your best sends, accessibility on par with a Link 1 that adds the field spell. A field spell with a floodgate that has applications against a huge chunk of decks. And it's not like zombie cards are going to stop sending to the graveyard anytime soon. It's a no-brainer easy inclusion as a plan A, or something to do after you've used your Unizombies and Immortal Dragons on combo extending. And of course you need it to pay off the specific Zombie World support like Doom King Baylor Drock and Glow Up Bloom. The entirety of the setup takes up very little space, so there isn't really much of a threat of bricking on it either. No-brainers are typically a sign that you don't really need a brain to play them. Zombie World is a strong but average floodgate, accessible at a speed and frequency most other floodgate cards could only dream of. I will once again blame Necroworld Banshee, especially for that effect of hers being quick. I don't know, people like to complain about generics until you go after their favorite. Type-wide generics still count. Have you seen fucking Splash Mage? Since the original Zombie World structure deck, and exacerbated by Zombie Horde, every zombie strategy has had access to this generic and needed to be built around its existence to a certain extent, just like any strong card. There's just under 250 zombie monsters to choose from, a fairly low count, but not the lowest of any typing. Still, most of them know the influence of Zombie World. Take a look at their back row support though, and you can see why they don't have very much else to zero in on. Except the Gold Boy, of course. They do have playables that don't technically require that you go all in on archetype support, but for every Shiranui Slash, Book of Life, or Vampire Kingdom, you have at least 2 Call of the Mummy, Enma's Judgment, or Teuton's Mask. I know some of these are pretty old, but Zombie World's old too, so it's fair. In general, if you want more with zombies, you need to be doing heavier archetypal plays to avoid the Zombie World stuff. I would like to apologize to the Skull Servant community for their cards being awful. You're truly some of the coolest duelists out there. Maybe the Mayakashi Shiranui crossover is easier to build around than I thought, or maybe Ghost Fusion is a sign of better things to come. Nothing else the type has can really do the job of carrying the team and keeping them in the game the same way that Zombie World does. Hold on, let me read Ghost Fusion. God damn it, it's got Zombie World synergy. It's still a sick card. So if it's such a big deal, if it's so broken, why don't you just side for it? Believe me, I will. There's a lot more to the damage this does to the zombie type than just being a good staple. Zombie World becomes an incredible choke point for decks that depend on it to give them game. Doesn't stop it from being good as an end board piece of some meta call combos outside of zombies, but it's not great for the decks that it's really meant to help. Yeah, Necroworld Banshee has an effect that protects Zombie World while it's face up on the field at the same time as it, but the fact that she needs to remove herself to search yourself with Zombie World means you're gonna need multiple of her in rotation or a convenient summon from Banished, which can be pretty hard to do. The Floodgate effect might make it harder for certain decks to grab their pops if they have to climb through their in-type plays to get to them, but things like Access Code Talker don't give a care about types.
Roblox! It's free!
With the recent return of the new and impaired Ancient Fairy Dragon, your access to the Shizu Millers, I guess, Beatrice, Branded Fusion send Necroworld, Alan Burshin, a token collector to get Necroworld, Rainbow Bridge of Salvation to grab the field, 3 metaverse that have been around for a while, Tactics Thrust to grab your stuff. Your favorite deck probably has a way to access Zombie World without jumping through backbreaking hoops. Most of these are enabled by Necroworld Banshee in specific, since she has no locks involved whatsoever. Hey, when a card wins matchups, you do what you can to find it. But people aren't finding it, because in the TCG format at the time of this recording, it's just not worth it. One of Zombie's strongest and most reliable tools being a bad meta call doesn't bode well for the type, especially in a post-bestial society. Zombie World as a card doesn't do anything important versus Kashtira or Sprite right now, especially since the most efficient setup for Banshee involves the graveyard, when you're in a format where the graveyard doesn't exist sometimes. It happens. Here they are, the reborn renegades, without their home, as the crutch they lean on is snapped from beneath their arm with a sudden start and a rising heart. One example of something that managed to step out of the shadow of Zombie World is Eldritch. It's only a zombie deck when it wants to be, and we love them for it. Sometimes Golden Lord makes for a better train. It's a deck famous for its versatility as an engine and grind game enabler in the formats where it can be allowed to do its thing. Eldritch cards being generic zombie support, but focused on rewarding you for summoning your Golden Lord first and foremost, makes Zombie World Eldritch a direction you can take. I love Eldritch for being exactly what I like to see in generic enablers. You never really have to be afraid of a new zombie monster getting released because you can summon it with a goddamn elixir. You do need to be aware of Zombie World if any zombie deck starts to have a little too much fun, shown by the Zombie World Eldritch variants. Truly, Eldritch is the best example of managing to step out of the shadow of the unyielding field. If you're playing a more complete theme that doesn't main deck the Zombie World business, like Mayakashi or Shiranui, you can still feel its presence in every deck, what you're missing out on, how the very cards you hold were built, optimally or not. However, Zombie World is not a bannable card by any stretch of the imagination. Whenever it's involved, it's hardly ever the biggest problem you'll have to deal with. This is kind of one of the biggest problems with it. It's strong enough to be constantly in consideration in card and deck design, so it just clings onto the head of the zombie type like a zesty vampire flesh bud. Maybe Banshee needs to go, but that feels equally useless. I'd argue that the answer is to outclass it. Maybe print another field spell that shares the same name, a la Umi. There is no card called a Legendary Ocean. Or maybe a set introducing a new zombie archetype could bring with it a series of new support deviating in a couple of different directions, diversifying the playstyles available. At the time of this recording, I patiently anticipate support that can remove all of Zombie's eggs from one basket. Their cold, dead basket. Okay, I know I made someone angry with this one. If I've learned anything from being on this site, it's that every deck has a ride or die fan club. Well, I'm willing to endure your pointing and laughing for just the chance to insult anything in relation to Pluton HG, famously my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh monster and probably one of the strongest zombies out there. I do want to see this type thrive, because of course zombies are cool. They just printed the coolest zombie card 15 years ago. They peaked in 4th grade. Just like I peaked 2 years ago making C-moment videos. Oh well. I do have a lot of ideas right now and I want to actualize as many as possible. That's why I gotta get out of here. Share the video, would ya?